Well, hello, and thank you for tuning in to Truth TV News. I'm Vincent Rhodes, your host. And I saw this the other day, and I wanted to make a comment or two about it concerning the spirits that are in the sky that actually are near the firmament. The other day, I purchased a globe for my son, which is a Tesla's globe. And inside the Tesla's globe, there is lightning that actually strikes the glass. The lightning strikes the glass and goes right back to the ground and or the grounding device in the middle, and does a pretty good job of exciting you for about 3 minutes, and then then of course everything returns back to normal because kids lose their interest very fast. But again, it is something to think about, that lightning strikes glass and then goes back to the ground. And that seems to be what is going on in the sky when we see lightning. I saw one video where a person was showing that lightning actually emanates from the ground and then goes upward as opposed to it actually coming down. Now, I don't care whether you believe it or not. They just say that this guy, whoever did this experiment, was showing it. Who knows? I don't know whether it's one way or the other. So again, with the trolls, don't start, on me about this, because I have more to say that's going to probably get you going a little bit different. Now, when we think about lightning, however, the nature of lightning is explained quite a bit in the book of Enoch, and this is what I wanted to talk about today. Wanted to talk about how the book of Enoch describes that lightning is actually a manifestation of an electromagnetic kind of angelic figure that exists in the realm of the heavenlies. And so the way Enoch describes lightning, they are more like things that appear out of stars. They come out of the stars and then they light up the sky. Now, this is a picture of them, and I saw this on this other video. Firmament caught on video, and so you can see in this picture here that these lightning, what do we call them? They call them sprites. Now, in the book of Enoch, he calls them splendors. So they call them sprites here, and they're found many miles above the clouds. Actually, about 62 miles above the clouds, or 100 kilometers. And that would be around 62 miles. Now, we know that when you get that high, then you strike the firmament, and the firmament is up there. And the highest part of the dome, I imagine, would be right here, where you can see that the spirit, or the sprite, is actually striking against the firmament. And so it's a quite an interesting video. Let me see if I can kind of like animate it for you so you can see some of the ways that they say it does there. As I was telling you before, and burst against the firmament. And so, you see the video here. And of course, you can possibly go and get the video for yourself and check it out. But there they are there. They are called sprites. The book of Enoch calls them the book of Enoch refers to them as splendors. They come out of the stars and they emanate high above the atmosphere. And it is one of the power, or the powerful things that actually generate electricity, or what we call lightning, on the earth. And so this is how lightning is formed. It's high up in the atmosphere, and then there's a discharge from these creatures of light. That's what they are. They're actually creatures of light. Now, then they come up with the ISS comes up with a bogus kind of image of them from the ISS. Let me see if I can even find that. There it is there. Now, the ISS takes claim that they actually have recorded seeing them from high above them. But we know that that would be impossible, because they would need to be over the firmament in order to see them. Really, the only way you can really see them is like jellyfish high up in the sky. Now, they give them the name sprites, and they also give them the name elf, and they talk about the blue jets. Because what they are doing is that they are referring to ancient folklore concerning these sprites, the word sprite actually means spirit. And so this would be a supernatural entity or a fairy-like creature. And so this would be where they get the term sprite from. Now they say that these creatures also appear on the earth and do all sorts of things within the earth realm, but that's why they call them sprites. Now the word sprite again is a derivative of the word spirit. And so you can see that these things are spiritual in nature. They are something of a unexplainable kind of creature that exists. Now you may want to call them again just a natural phenomenon of the electromagnetic field, and that they are energy, and that's all they are. Well, you're energy too, but the book of Enoch has a very interesting thing to say about them. And let's see if I can get to it. Now, the book of Enoch refers to the angels as stars. And so we know that these sprites come out of the stars. And let me see if I can get down here somewhere where I can read it. And it says, he said, then he surveyed. Now, Enoch is taken on a incredible journey in the book of Enoch in chapter 18. And you know that Enoch, we're referring to the one whom was so close to the Lord that the Lord took him. Now, the scripture says that, again, it's not unusual for angels to pick up humans in vehicles and transport them around. Now, this happened also to Elijah, and so Elijah was carried away when he saw the chariots of fire. So also Enoch was also carried away, and he was not, because the Lord carried him away. Now, Enoch described, before he left, he described the way angels and the firmament and all of these things work. And so in the book of Enoch, chapter 18, you will begin to see what are some of the things that he said. Now, I'm probably not going to be able to read all of this because, again, it might just get to be very long. But he says, then he surveyed the receptacles of the wind and perceived that they contributed Adam the whole creation. And he says, and to preserve the foundation of the earth, I surveyed the store which supports the corners of the earth. Now, again, when we talked about the corners of the earth, I just did a video revealing to you the corners of the earth, and I told you that the angels were in charge of the four winds, and they were at the four corners of the earth. So Enoch is going to go on an incredible journey that is going to extend outside of the firmament and go to the four corners of the earth. Now, when he gets there, he's going to see some very, very incredible things. He says, I beheld four winds which bared up the earth and the firmament of heaven. So heaven does have a firmament, or the sky does have a firmament, and it is a hard and fast structure. The scripture tells us that the firmament is as molten glass, and you will again find that within the biblical text of the King James Version. And it says, I beheld the winds that occupied the exalted sky, and I arise in the midst of heaven and earth, and constituting the pillars of heaven. And I saw the winds which turned the sky, which caused the orb of the sun and all of the stars to set and over the earth. It's the sun sets over the earth, the star sets over the earth. It's over the earth. We're not circling the sun. The sun is setting over the earth. The stars are setting over the earth. And he says, I saw the winds which support the clouds. And I also saw the path of the angels. So the angels do have a path that they travel throughout the earth. And I perceive the extremities of the earth and the firmament of heaven above it. Then I passed on towards the south. Now he's going towards the south. And listen, he possibly could even go farther beyond the South Pole, and he's going to see some things here. Where burned both day and night 6 mountains formed of glorious stones. And he says, then he says towards the east, and three towards the east, and 3 towards the south. And he says, those which were towards the east were venerated stones, and which was migrated, and another antimony. Okay, so he talks about these stones and the way the stones look and the color of them, and he's going to give an explanation of that about them being the color of alabaster, jasper, and a number of other things. But he also goes all the way even beyond that, because they take him in this ship on this incredible journey. And he says, and I saw a place on the other side that extended towards a territory which waters were collected. The waters were being collected at a territory. Now, those of you who are round ball earthers are always laughing about the waters. Where do the waters go? Do they just go off the edge? But I know that there's a great deep beneath us, and then there's a great watery deep above the earth, and then there's the firmament, which covers the earth to keep it from flooding and keep the water out. And he says, so this is what Enoch is actually describing. He says, and likewise I beheld the terrestrial fountains deep in the fiery columns of heaven. Now he sounds like he's really, really far out there. And he says, and in the columns of heaven I beheld the fire, which descended without number, but neither on high nor into the deep. Over the fountains also I perceived the place which had neither the firmament of heaven above it, nor the solid ground beneath it. Now he went to another place. They're taking him very far out south. They are just traveling so far. They're traveling beyond the boundaries of the earth, and they are extending way beyond the boundaries of the earth to actually go to a place that is even farther than any man has ever been. This is what Scripture says. No one's ever seen this. I mean, this is way even beyond the sun, way beyond the stars. He says, neither was there water above it, nor anything on wing. So there was nothing. He didn't spot a bird nor any other kind of winged creature. He says, but the spot was desolate. As a matter of fact, it was terrible. It was a wasteland. That's where he went. He went way beyond the earth, beyond the firmament and outside of the firmament, and he went to a wasteland. And listen to what he says. He says, I beheld 7 stars. Now that's where he got to this wasteland. Is they were like great blazing mountains and like spirits entreating me. Then the angel said, Uriel is telling him this whole thing, because Uriel is the archangel that carried him here. This place until the consummation of the heaven and earth, until the very finish, will be the prison of the stars and the host of heaven. And it says, the stars which roll over the fire are those which transgressed the commandments of God before their time arrived, for they came not in their proper season. Therefore he's offended with them, and the Lord bound them. Now this is something to this gets right back to Scripture, because again, when we talk about the Lord, the reason the Lord caused the flood is because angels came down, or fallen angels came down, and saw that the daughters of men were beautiful, and took to them wives whom they chose. So these stars, these are the fallen ones who have been trapped, and these were 7 of them. He says he bound them until the period of the consummation of their crimes in the secret year. So the Lord is going to he's going to punish them. He's going to deal with them concerning that. Now, again, not only is he going to deal with them, but he's also going to deal with the women who were, consorting with these angels. Let me see if I can find that there. Here it is here. This gentleman here who wrote this particular website. Let me see, where is he? I think he's more of a globe earther. But he talks about this entire thing too. And I don't know if I can give him credit for his work. But anyway, let's get on back down here. He talks about how that they flew also, and the trip that went to the far corners of the earth as well, over the south, all the way out south past the firmament. And he says, now over the abyss there was a heaven fire that goes up and down in immense pillars, and there were 7 stars. And he talks about the 7 stars, which is of course not stars here on earth, but stars hovering above the South Pole. He calls it the South Pole. Uh, I believe that it was even farther than the South Pole. I believe that they just kept going south until they couldn't even go any further. And even when we talk about the South Pole, that's a misnomer. The South is just going out, as far out, extended past the Great Wall, ice wall, and then over the Great Ice Wall and into the spiritual realm that again Admiral Byrd talks about. And Admiral Byrd talks about how he was turned around by these beings who had incredible technology and strength to turn his entire fleet around and sink many of the battleships and just turn them totally around so that they couldn't even go any further south. So this is what Admiral Byrd said. So this is something to think about. It's very interesting indeed. And so he says, and a well-known formation of seven stars is Pleiades. And he says, were the stars of Enoch, were the stars Enoch saw Pleiades. Now, Pleiades is the mythological story of the seven women who were also bound with the seven angels. And it says, seven things seem to confirm this. Firstly, the angels tell him that the certain fallen angels were to be bound to those stars because they mingled with the women on the earth. And again, this is why they were bound. And this is why the flood happened in Genesis chapter 6. And the story is very similar to the myth of the Greeks and the Mesopotamians. In the Greek myth, seven women were put in the starry heavens because they mingled with the Titans. Titans is another name for fallen angels, okay? So this is quite interesting how, again, all of this goes together, by which they were made pregnant. They were made pregnant by these angels. And remember what it says in Genesis chapter 6, that this is a clear parallel to Genesis chapter 6. In Genesis chapter 6, the women who were saw as beautiful by the angelic angels, the angels ended up having children with them, and those children ended up being Nephilim, and the Nephilim were men of great size and were mighty men with supernatural powers, and who knows what else they could do. They could do great feats. They were men of renown, and this is what Scripture clearly teaches us this. So there is a parallel between this. And so according to the mythology here of Pleiades, the Greek mythology, that these women were trapped with these fallen angels. It says they impregnated them together with the angels and among the seven stars. They were among the seven stars. These Greek women are called Pleiades, and therefore we know that those seven stars in Enoch must be the Pleiades. So again, these stars actually are angels. So when you look in the sky, the Bible says the stars will fall to the earth. I don't know. It's just an amazing world we live in, and I'm sure NASA doesn't really know what's going on. They are just talking, out both sides of their mouth, and they just keep giving us these stories over and over again. Now, again, here's what Enoch says in chapter 43 about the splendors or the stars of heaven. He says, I beheld another splendor, and the stars of heaven, I observed that he called them by their respective names. He called the stars of heaven by name, and that they heard. The stars heard. Listen, this is what the scripture says. This is also true in Revelation chapter 1, verse 20. When we talk about Revelation chapter 1, verse 20, we picture Christ holding in his hand seven stars. And the mystery of the seven stars you saw in my right hand, and the seven lampstands and the seven stars are angels. That's what he says. Stars are the angels. Okay, so that's what we find there. So the stars are angels, and that's so we find that. So we go back to this, and we say that he called them by their respective names, and that they heard. And in a righteous balance, I saw that he weighed out with their light the amplitude of their place, their light. They had light, right? And the day of their appearance and their conversion. Splendor produced splendor. These stars were producing one another. They were producing. Out of the splendor came another splendor. Well, let's get back here and let's take a look at some of these splendors here. These are what they look like here. These spirits coming out of stars, kind of like a splendor of some sort here. And so again, they now the International Space Station is a hoax, okay? But they're saying that they have filmed them high above the atmosphere. But really, the best way to see them is right here on the ground. You can look up and you can see them. They burst into the firmament against the firmament and explode. That's what they actually do. They explode against the firmament. And so again, I want to give you just a bit of it and show you what they look like there. So anyway, like, subscribe, or don't. Also, remember to visit my website, truthsetfreetv.com, and leave a donation if you like what we're doing, what I'm doing. It does help. Anyway, like, subscribe, or don't. But remember, until next time, that Jesus is the light of the world, and the truth shall set you free.